Hi, my name is Glow and welcome to my show. Today I'm reviewing NF's album Therapy Session. So, Intro 2. This really is less of a full song and more of an introduction to the rest of the album in order to get people hyped up and give them an idea of what they're getting into. The lines, "You heard what I said, that was like me at 3, you don't want to see me at 10, or maybe you do," and "I promise if that is the case, then that is what you're gonna get. If you're looking for music with watered-down lyrics, I promise that you need to go somewhere else," are an example of hype that has no other purpose, which is fine for an intro to an album, but doesn't really hold water as a song on its own. The line, "I let you see what it's like to be in my head," makes me wonder if that's what he would say the purpose of his music is. Most artists would say that the purpose of their art is to spread a message, or entertain people, or even just for them to have fun. But if NF would say that he really wants people to get to know him, that would be really interesting and unusual. The line, "People ask me what I think I'd be doing. If it weren't music, I'd rather be dead," makes me think it's awesome he's doing what he loves. But when you think about the hundreds or thousands of people who aren't that lucky, that might be the darkest line on this entire album. He says, "Write a review, tell me what you think of this, give me 3 stars and call me an idiot. But to be honest, it doesn't make a difference." I guess he's calling me out, huh? I guess I should explain what the point of critique is, just for anyone else who doesn't already know. It's not to call the artist out or make them feel bad, or at least not if you're doing it right. I don't even think NF or anyone he works with will ever see this, and even if they do, it can benefit more people than just them. Listening to someone else explain why they like or dislike something can help you learn how to form opinions, analyze media, and communicate those critiques in a clear manner. On top of that, looking for flaws or strengths in other people's work can help an artist improve their craft too. For example, I often say songs are boring because they are too repetitive, so if you write songs, maybe watch out for repetition in your own work, and if you don't like it, change it to make your song less repetitive. Overall, this is a good intro, but that's all it is. It cannot stand on its own as a song. Therapy Session. There's a line that says, "Kids hit me up, say they slittin' they wrists on the daily," that he says before complaining about parents calling his music violent. NF, please keep making violent music. I love it. Lots of people love it, but don't expect everyone to love it. Don't even expect your fans to want to hear it all the time. Deep, introspective, and yes, sometimes violent songs are the ones that I find the most interesting to talk about, but I listen to fun, simple, but still good songs just as often. If anything, you kind of need both. I also totally understand why parents of particularly young children wouldn't want to hear a song like this while their kids are around. It's the whole reason we have different standards for kids' media. I suppose when he says, "I guess that your definition of violence and mine is something that we look at differently," that could indicate that it's not the fact that they have some issues with his music that he's upset about, it's just the specific word they're using. Want me to smile, you want me to laugh, you want me to walk in the stage with a smile on my face when I'm mad and put on a mask. In one way, that could be a touching way of saying how everyone in general expects you to pretend to be happy whether you actually are or not. But I don't think blaming that on being a musical artist really makes any sense. Even happy songs, if they're good, are based on the artist's personal feelings and experiences. If anything, he has more freedom to express himself in this profession than someone working in an office or factory who has to smile all the time or they'll be told they have a bad attitude. I'm not saying being a performer is easy, I just disagree that this is one of the reasons it's particularly hard. He says, "How you gonna write me and tell me you slaughter my family? That's just a glimpse of the stuff that gets sent to me." This I can completely get behind him complaining about. It's horrible how much people overreact, and we have a particularly prominent problem with it in the Christian music community. I just want to know. So, I've praised things before for being relatable, but while I do think that is always a good thing artistically, sometimes it gets in the way of enjoyment. Like this song. I want to like this song, but it gets hard for me to listen to at several points because of either actions other people have taken against me, or cases where people have really harshly misinterpreted my actions. Like the line, "Yeah, you pass me in the hallway, but you ain't say a word to me," is uncomfortable for me because people have taken me just not seeing or noticing them as a direct personal attack before. Or the line, "Yeah, only time you ever call me is when you feelin' like don't nobody else wanna listen. When's the last time you saw me? You probably don't remember." That reminds me of when a friend completely ignored me for over a year and I got berated for being slightly upset about that. This line also shows that trust is a really complicated thing and is honestly kind of a crapshoot. There are some things that can help you decide who to trust and when, but at the end of the day, there's always risk involved. The line, "Who you having fun with? Don't tell me, I don't want to know. Every time I ask, I just feel sick," is a grim reminder that people change and it's often not for the better. Ultimately, this is a good but very sad song. How could you leave us? What can I even say? When I first heard the line, "How could you leave us so unexpected?" my mind went straight to death, but in context it actually refers to abandonment. The line, "Mama told me she loved me, I'm thinking this isn't real. I think of you when I get a whiff of that cigarette smell, yeah, welcome to the bottom of hell," has excellent imagery. I can just see a woman smoking while surrounded by fire. An uncomfortable thing about the line, "Mama told me she loved me, I'm thinking I don't get it, Mom, don't you want to watch your babies grow," is that I think I kinda do get it. I'm not a parent, but if I felt like my only two choices were to either give up my children or make their lives worse by staying in them, I would probably choose the former. It's clear from the line, "I got this picture in my room and it kills me, but I don't need a picture of my mom, I need the real thing," that there is still some affection there, despite the line, "I ain't gonna say that I forgive you 'cause it hasn't happened." That is also the most devastating and interesting one in the song, and I would have used it for a gut punch at the end of the song, but that's really more of an observation than a criticism. I love that he's admitting he doesn't forgive her, because that's not something people always can do, even if they try. The line, "I thought that maybe I feel better as time passes," is fairly insightful as well, because time just doesn't heal all wounds. If it wasn't obvious, I think this song is amazing, even though I personally probably won't be listening to it again anytime soon because it's also really sad. Breathe. This song communicated some really complicated emotions, so I'm not even sure if it's about regret, worrying how you'll turn out in the future, or both. After all, he acknowledges that he hurt people along the way in his career, but also that he enjoys what he does, rather than saying, "I wish I'd just stayed in my hometown for the rest of my life," he says, "What am I left with?" On the other hand, though, he does say, "I'd rather be home with my grandparents and playing euchre," which is kind of like saying he wishes he'd just stayed in his hometown. It's another sad but overall good song. Real. This song is mainly weird brags, which I'm aware is a key component of rap, but from what I can gather, this was meant to be a takedown of that kind of music. Some of the bragging I'm talking about is in the lines, "That nurse came into my room, she told me I'm sick in the head, I'm in hip-hop's hospital bed with a pad and a pen," and "You're better off playing Russian roulette than comin' in a booth with me 'cause I get a little bit intense, I'm like, who's next?" And "My life is a mess, better watch your step when you step in it." Even though these aren't 100% positive statements, there is a tone of superiority in them. It's kind of like he's saying, "You could never handle my life." There are lines like, "I'm not complaining, I'm just being honest," and "Father, forgive me for I am a sinner," that do make me think this was intended to be a takedown of this arrogant attitude, something like Lecrae's "Fakin'." I just don't think this rap manages to actually pull that off. It's far from the worst song ever, but it is bad, because it just doesn't accomplish what it set out to do. Oh Lord. I'm surprised just how much this song disappointed me. There are lines that can help me get my point across about the problem with this song right away. For example, "Don't nobody wanna pray till they got something to pray for," and "When ya healthy, it's like we don't really care for him, then leave me alone, God, I'll call you when I need you again." Ahem. No! You sound like every awful, judgmental, delusional preacher I have ever had the displeasure of listening to. Seriously, I'm sure people who take God for granted when their lives are going fine exist, but why is that our default assumption of everyone, including our own Christian friends? I don't think I've ever met a single person who went to church and/or read the Bible but only ever prayed when something bad happened to them. And yet, that's the narrative I always hear. I suppose the easiest defense is that NF was talking about himself, but if that is the case, it should be in first person instead of second person to make that fact clear. And it's not a weird artist thing where NF never writes anything in first person either. He did it earlier in this song. It's not a case of an otherwise good song having a few bad lines either, because another one of the lines is, "You see the same God that you saying might not even exist becomes real to us but only when we're dying in bed." Again, this just doesn't really ring true. There are plenty of people who don't believe in God when they die, as well as people that are less faithful on their deathbeds than they were when they were healthy. This song sounds like it was written off the cuff. That in itself isn't automatically bad, it could even be impressive, but this sounds rambly and contains a bunch of terrible and cliché ideas. Sometimes that's what happens when you don't think through what you're saying. It's bad, like Blessings level bad. I can feel it. So in between the boring repetitive intro and the uninteresting repetitious outro, we get a bad but distressingly common message. Suffering brings you closer to God and makes you a better person. NF outright says, "I thank God for the hard times 'cause they guaranteed." And sure, they are guaranteed, but what people should be thanking God for is the ability to work through the hardships and eventually even overcome them. Because that's the part that actually builds character and brings us closer to God. Endless suffering is nothing more than that. Endless suffering. For goodness sakes, even Job got a reward at the end. Where did this stupid idea that has caused actual damage to so many people even come from? It's not just that one line either. He also says, "Sometimes I miss all those memories," after describing being poor. It implies that luxuries, like being able to pay rent and turn on your heat, make you weak. Although I do think it was meant to say he misses the people and the moments. Still, this glorification of distress causes people physical and mental harm, which is why I cannot call this song anything but terrible. Got You on My Mind. I don't have much to say. It's a dopey love song mostly. I do have 3 things to compliment. The first one is its realness. It starts out talking about dead parents and pills in the line, "Said you lost your dad, girl, I know how that feels. I lost my mom, trying to deal with that still. I guess we connected on our hatred for pills." And the second thing is, it explains why NF likes and feels comfortable with this person. It's because she understands him even when he's in the middle of a mental and emotional breakdown, illustrated by the line, "I'm a closed book, but somehow you learn to read that." And the third thing I like is NF being vulnerable while admitting that that is hard for him in the lines, "Sometimes I hold back from saying I miss you, but I miss you." Overall, it's a good song, as well as one of the better love songs I've heard. Grindin'. There are a number of lines I like, for example, "Everybody got opinions, let it go into my ear and then I block that." The implication that it actually stays in his head, even though he's trying to block it out, is clever. The line, "Everybody got a shirt with a stain on it, some of us'll never wear it out though, let me get it," is a nice little jab at the rich. Some of these people thinking 'cause they heard the name that they really know who I am, before saying, "I'd rather give time to my fans." I noticed that first line I mentioned there, he seemed to be contradicting that time he said something like, "If you want to know what I'm like, just listen to my music," but because he went on to say something positive about his fans, I guess it was just another jab at critics? It's unclear. However, I really don't like the line, "You put me inside a room full of rappers, come back in 5 minutes, I'ma be the only one still alive with a note on my chest saying that I did it." I don't know about you, but all I heard from that was, because other rappers are more violent, therefore I get to deflect criticism and use an unnecessarily violent metaphor about Russian roulette. You're right, Nathan, I don't think I would like you if we met in real life. The rest is boring and/or repetitive. There's a decent amount of both good and bad here, so it evens out to being okay. Wish you wouldn't. A lot of this is really vague. I get that it's about guilt over a complicated relationship, and maybe choosing work over his girlfriend even when he didn't need to, but the specific details aren't there. For example, the line, "There's too many things I'm trying to deal with." Things like what? He mentioned his work-life balance, but give an example. Maybe she fell asleep waiting for him, or he spent time in the studio rather than attending a date that they had planned. I do like NF saying, "Go ahead and blame me." That is pretty mature. Fixing the problem would be more mature, though. The line, "Back and forth, you love, you hate me," stands out because it paints a much more mutually detrimental picture of their relationship than the rest of the song. He says, "See, I signed a deal, you say that I should have asked ya," and yes! You should have. That is the kind of huge decision that your significant other really needs to know about. The line, "You ain't the one, you ain't the one," is the only one that clearly indicates they are breaking up. The rest of the song brings that into question. I guess the vagueness there might have been intentional, just like it being unclear if he is talking to himself or his girlfriend when he says, "I wish you didn't say things, I wish you didn't say things that you don't mean, that you don't mean." It again makes it seem like maybe he didn't mean it when he said, "You're not the one." He also says, "I know you don't feel this, yeah, I'm just expressing the way that I'm feeling, the things that I'm trying to deal with," and when he says, "I know you don't feel this," does he mean the relationship, or is he saying that she can't understand him because she isn't mentally ill? Or maybe worse, because she's a woman? It's hard for me to think of a way that isn't insulting. At the same time, though, there are some things people without your specific experience just won't ever truly understand, so I guess I can let it slide. Small thing, but there's also this line, "Hand up the phone, I regret it right after." Isn't this supposed to be hang up the phone? Why change it? It doesn't add any new meaning. Overall, I like this song, but it's far from the best one I've ever heard. Statement. This whole song is nothing but humble bragging, which I would be fine with if it had any other purpose, but it doesn't. Lines like, "I know you don't feel this, yeah, I'm just expressing the way that I'm feeling, the things that I'm trying to deal with," make me think, dude, you are a white rapper. Maybe don't insult the culture black people built that you've broken into too much. The line, "You got into music 'cause you think it's fun, man, I'm doing this 'cause I have to." What exactly is wrong with fun? Kinda like I said before, making serious, gritty music is fine, great even, but thinking other people are obligated to like nothing but dark music is really screwed up. Being offended or closed-minded isn't even the only reason for it. Some people might not like it because they relate to it too much. My favorite line is, "I used to call up some people that won't call me back, now they blowing up my phone, woo." It might be the only line I genuinely like and agree with the message of. It's still a really bad track, though. All I do. He says, "Fans hit me up on my Instagram like you've been singing too much." What fan would ever say this except in the context that he needs to take a break for his own health? If people are saying this, I don't think they are fans of his, or they wouldn't complain about having new music by one of their favorite artists. Unless that word singing just implies that his work doesn't sound enough like rap, which I would completely disagree with. I don't really get the next line either. "Then the moment I stop, you gon' write me and say I ain't singing enough." That does sound more like something a fan might say, but when you put those two lines together, why would this be the case? And how do you even know that it's the same people saying this? They sure don't sound like the same people. The rest of the song is more meaningless humble bragging. It's bad. Lost in the moment. This may be the last sunset I'll see, so I'll take it in, I'll take it in. This may be the last air that I'll breathe, is a strong start. This song sounds like a conversation. My favorite part is, yeah, they told us that time flies, don't know what it means now. I feel like we just running around trying to catch it and hoping to cut up its wings. A clever way of conveying this idea. This song seems like an improvised conversation and brings up a bunch of things but doesn't really ever pick one to explore. I prefer exploring one or two particular topics more deeply, but this is still a nice song to listen to. Overall, the album is okay, but not in the same way that the last full album I reviewed is okay, because, well, that album had mostly okay songs with a few good and bad outliers. This one is all over the place, with songs like I Can Feel It that are candidates for my favorite songs of all time, but also songs like Oh Lord that are some of the worst I have ever heard, as well as 2 tracks that are just okay, which this time around makes them the outliers. After being introduced to NF's work with a song as good as Leave Me Alone, this was kinda disappointing. Obviously, I knew not every song would be a masterpiece, but I wasn't expecting this many of them to be this awful, and after listening to more of his music, I'm just not a fan. Even if there are a few songs here I will be listening to over and over again. Tell me if I'm wrong.